It was 11:51 p.m. when the text came through. No hello, no. How are you? Just a notification from my father, Dennis. Lauren, it read, we think it is best you skip the summer kickoff barbecue this weekend. Your serious energy really dampens the mood. Just make sure the silent partner transfer hits by the first. I stared at the words silent partner. That was his nickname for me, not daughter, just a resource. I did not cry. I did not ask why. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen, opened my banking app, and found the recurring payment of $3,250. I tapped cancel. He wanted a silent partner fine. I decided to give him exactly the silence he asked for. Before we go any further, drop a comment below. If a family member told you were not welcome at the dinner table, but your wallet was, would you still send the check? Let me know where you are watching from. People ask me why I paid for so long if they were so cruel. They look at the math, $58,500 over 18 months, and they shake their heads. They call me a doormat, but they do not understand the economics of a child desperate for approval. I did not cancel that payment because I was having a tantrum. I canceled it because for the first time in my life, I looked at the balance sheet and realized the return on investment was zero. The morning after the text, I got in my car. It is a 2014 sedan with a dent on the rear bumper and an air conditioner that only works when it is raining. I drove past the house. My house really, if we are talking about who keeps the lights on, but on paper it belongs to Dennis. It sits on a half-acre lot in the nice part of town with manicured hedges and a driveway wide enough for 3 cars. I pulled over 3 houses down and just watched. The preparations for the summer kickoff were in full swing. A white event tent was already pitched in the backyard, its peaks visible over the fence. A catering van was unloading trays of what looked like sliders and shrimp cocktails. I saw a guy in a black t-shirt setting up speakers for a DJ booth. My father, Dennis, was standing in the driveway directing traffic. He looked great. He was tanned, wearing a crisp polo shirt, laughing with the delivery guys. He didn't look like a man struggling to make ends meet. He didn't look like a man who needed his daughter to cover the $3,000 mortgage so he wouldn't lose the family estate. He looked like a king holding court. Then I looked at my own hands, gripping the steering wheel. My nails were bare because manicures are $20 I usually save. I looked at the passenger seat where my lunchbox sat packed with leftovers because buying lunch is reckless. I live in a 600-foot apartment where the radiator clanks like a dying engine all winter. I haven't taken a real vacation in 4 years. I have been eating ramen and working overtime to fund the lifestyle of a man who just uninvited me from eating his shrimp because my energy is too serious. That is when the realization hit me cold and hard as a coin on a counter. This is the transactional trap. For 18 months, I had convinced myself I was helping. But I wasn't helping. I was subscribing. I had turned my relationship with my father into a subscription service. In my head, I thought that if I just paid the monthly fee, eventually I would unlock the premium features. I thought if I covered the bills, the version of my dad who criticized my weight and called me boring would fade away, and the version of him who was proud of me would finally download. I treated his love like it was pay to win. I thought maybe if I hit the $60,000 mark, he will finally say thank you. Maybe if I save the house, he will finally see me. But sitting there watching him laugh while the DJ tested the bass, I understood the fraud. There was no premium version. The dad who loved me didn't exist behind a paywall. He didn't exist at all. I was paying top dollar for a product that was never going to be delivered. He called me a silent partner because that is what you call someone who puts up the capital but gets no say in the business. He was right. I was an investor, and any smart investor knows that when an asset becomes a liability, you do not keep pouring cash into it. You liquidate. You cut your losses. You walk away. I put the car in drive. I didn't honk. I didn't wave. I didn't scream out the window that I paid for that tent and that food and that driveway. I just drove away back to my small, quiet apartment. The anger wasn't loud this time. It was clinical. It was the feeling of closing a bad account. I wasn't sad anymore. I was just done paying the bill. The first of the month arrived like a held breath. For the last year and a half, the first was a day of subtraction. I would wake up, check my phone, and see the notification that $3,250 had left my account. It always felt like a little amputation, a necessary loss to keep the family body healthy. But this morning, the notification never came. The money stayed right there, sitting in my checking account like a soldier who had been ordered to stand down. I went to work. I sat in meetings. I drank my coffee. And I waited. There is a specific kind of heartbreak that comes from silence. Part of me, the stupid hopeful part that I was trying to kill, thought that maybe someone would call. I thought that when the money didn't arrive, their first instinct might be worry. I thought my father might call and say, "Lord, the transfer didn't go through. Are you okay? Did you lose your job? Are you in the hospital? Did something happen?" I waited 24 hours. My phone did not ring. I waited 48 hours. My inbox remained empty. That silence was the most expensive lesson I have ever learned. It taught me exactly where I stood. If I had been lying in a ditch somewhere, or if I had been fired, or if my apartment had burned down, they wouldn't have known. They didn't notice my absence. They only noticed the absence of my utility. They didn't miss Lauren. They missed the deposit. On the third day, the silence broke, but it wasn't with concern. My phone buzzed while I was heating up dinner. A missed call from Dad, then a voicemail. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the counter. His voice filled my small kitchen casual and irritated like he was ordering a pizza and they had forgotten the pepperoni. "Hey Lauren," he said. "Just got a notice from the bank that the transfer failed. Must be some kind of error on your end. Fix the glitch as soon as you get this. It is embarrassing to have them calling me. Let me know when it is done." Click. Fix the glitch. I stared at the phone. I wasn't a daughter to him. I wasn't even a partner, silent or otherwise. I was software. I was an appliance that had stopped working. You don't ask a toaster if it is feeling okay when it burns the bread. You just hit it, or you unplug it, or you yell at it to work. I was just a malfunction in his otherwise comfortable life. I didn't call him back. I didn't text. For the first time in my life, I realized that I held the remote control. I simply deleted the voicemail. 2 days passed. The silence from my end was no longer passive. It was heavy. It was a wall I was building brick by brick. And that is when the confusion on their end turned into rage. They realized the appliance wasn't broken. It was unplugged. My sister Megan was the first to break protocol. Megan is 32, the golden child, the one who is always chasing a dream that requires someone else's funding. She texted me at 11 in the morning on a Tuesday. "What is going on with you?" She wrote, "Dad is freaking out. He says you are not picking up. You know his blood pressure cannot handle this kind of stress. Just send the money so he can calm down. You are being dramatic." I looked at the text. No hello. No question about why I wasn't at the barbecue. Just a demand to regulate our father's emotions with my checkbook. She didn't care about the money. She cared that if I didn't pay it, the problem of Dad would fall on her. She needed me to be the buffer. She needed me to be the wallet so she could keep being the princess. I typed out a response. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every sacrifice I had made, every lunch I had skipped, every pair of shoes I hadn't bought so they could have catered shrimp. But then I remembered the text. Silent partner. I backspaced until the screen was blank. I put the phone face down. I went back to my work. If they wanted a ghost, I would be the most haunting thing they had ever seen. I would be completely, terrifyingly silent. By day 7, the silence wasn't just heavy. It was weaponized. My refusal to engage had stripped away the polite veneer of our family dynamic, exposing the ugly machinery underneath. When you stop playing your role in a toxic system, the system doesn't just pause to reflect. It attacks. Aunt Brenda entered the chat on a Thursday evening. Brenda is my dad's older sister, a woman who wields scripture like a switchblade. She didn't text. She sent a voice memo, probably so she could hear the righteousness in her own voice. "Lauren," she began, her tone dipped in that fake sugary concern that burns going down. "Megan told me what is happening. I know you are upset about the party, dear, but punishing your father financially is a violation of the commandment. Honor thy father. He raised you. He put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe him this security. Do not let bitterness poison your spirit. Send the money and let's put this ugliness behind us. I sat on my couch, the voice memo playing on a loop. You owe him. The guilt hook snagged right where she intended it to. My stomach twisted. Was I being petty? Was I being ungrateful? He did raise me. Maybe I was the bad guy here. The programming runs deep when you have been the dutiful daughter your whole life. I handed the phone to Caleb. He is an architect, logical, structural, sees the world in loads and supports. He listened to Brenda's sermon, his face unmoving. When it finished, he didn't look angry. He looked like he was inspecting a crack in a foundation. Do you know what this is? He asked, handing the phone back. Guilt, I offered weakly. Manipulation. It is an extinction burst, he said. He sat down next to me, turning his body to face mine fully. In psychology, when you stop reinforcing a behavior, like when you stop feeding a lab rat pellets for pressing a lever, the rat doesn't just walk away. It freaks out. It presses the lever 100 times a minute. It bites the cage. It attacks the other rats. It screams. That spike in crazy behavior. That is the extinction burst. They are panic biting because the lever broke. I blinked. So they are rats. He smiled just a little. In this scenario, yes, they aren't calling because they miss you, Lauren. They're calling because the pellet dispenser stopped working. If you give in now, if you send even $1 just to make the noise stop, you teach them that the price of your compliance is a little bit of harassment. You teach them that if they bite the cage hard enough, you will refill the bowl. The image clicked. Brenda wasn't a moral authority. She was just biting the cage. Megan wasn't a worried daughter. She was biting the cage. Dad wasn't a victim. He was the hungriest rat of them all. So, what do? I asked. You let the burst burn itself out, Caleb said. You stay silent. You let them bite the metal until their teeth break. His words became my armor. When the next wave hit, I was ready, but I wasn't expecting the escalation to jump from spiritual guilt to legal threats so quickly. The email arrived late that night. The subject line was one word, capitalized, theft. I opened it, my heart hammering a nervous rhythm against my ribs. It was from Dad. Lauren, I have spoken to an advisor. By abruptly ceasing the payments you agreed to, you are committing financial abuse. That mortgage was being paid in lieu of the rent and expenses you accrued during your childhood. We had a verbal contract. By stopping payment, you are essentially stealing the equity that belongs to this family, specifically to your sister's future inheritance. Consider this your final warning. If the funds are not transferred by tomorrow, I will be forced to pursue legal action for breach of verbal contract. Do not test me. Robert Dennis. I read it twice, then I laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound that surprised me. He was accusing me of stealing equity. He was claiming my childhood was a loan I had to repay with interest. He wasn't just desperate. He was delusional. He truly believed that my money was his property, that my labor was his birthright. He was threatening to sue me for the privilege of paying his bills. I looked at Caleb. The rat is biting pretty hard, I whispered. Let him bite, Caleb said. But rats shouldn't threaten lawyers unless they want to get caught in a trap. I closed the laptop. I didn't reply. But the next morning I made a call. If Dad wanted to talk about contracts and theft, I figured it was time to bring in someone who actually spoke the language. I treated the email exactly as it was written, a formal business threat. You don't cry when a vendor threatens to sue you. You audit the books. The next morning I met cousin Diane for coffee. Diane is my dad's estranged sister, the only person in the family who stopped drinking the Kool-Aid a decade ago. We met at a diner halfway between my apartment and her office. She looked at me over the rim of her mug, her eyes sharp and knowing. He sent the theft email, didn't he? She asked before I even sat down. I froze. How did you know? He sent the same one to our parents 20 years ago, she said, shaking her head. Claimed they were stealing his potential by not investing in his first business. Dennis has a script, Lauren. You're just the new lead actress. Hearing that was like finding the light switch in a dark room. I wasn't special. I wasn't even uniquely victimized. I was just the latest mark in a long con. Emboldened, I told her about the plan. I am not just stopping payments, I said. I am sending a legal response, a notice of non-liability. Diane smiled, and it looked like a blade being unsheathed. Good, do it. But check the records first. Dennis lies about numbers the way other people breathe. I hired a lawyer that afternoon, not a family friend, but a real estate attorney named Mr. Henderson. I paid him a retainer I couldn't really afford, but I considered it an investment in my freedom. I asked him to draft a formal response to Dad's threat, a letter stating clearly that there was no contract, no debt, and that I had zero ownership interest or obligation to the property. 2 days later, Henderson called me. Lauren, he said, his voice flat and professional. I am reviewing the property records to reference the deed in your letter. We have a problem. What problem? I asked. Is my name on something? No, he said. The problem is the mortgage balance. You said you have paid over $58,000 in principal and interest over the last 18 months. Correct. Yes. $2,400 a month initially, then he raised it to $3,250 because of variable rates. Lauren Henderson paused. The mortgage balance hasn't gone down. It has gone up. The room seemed to tilt. What? 6 months ago, a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, was opened against the property. It is maxed out $65,000, and the primary mortgage is currently 90 days past due. The payments you were sending, they weren't going to the bank. I felt nauseous. Where did they go? Henderson hesitated. I cannot see his bank accounts obviously, but the HELOC date aligns with a major purchase registered at the same address. A luxury recreational vehicle, a 2024 G-Stream. I dropped the phone. The pieces slammed together in my mind, forming a picture so ugly I wanted to look away. 6 months ago, that was when Megan launched her travel influencer brand. I remembered the Instagram posts. New mobile studio, investing in myself, big things coming. She had posed in front of a sleek modern RV holding a bottle of champagne. I had assumed she rented it. Dad didn't just take my money. He took the equity I had been paying down for him, leveraged it to the hilt, and co-signed a loan for a $65,000 toy for his golden child. He used my money to buy her dream while telling me I was stealing her inheritance. And Lauren Henderson's voice came tiny from the floor where I dropped the phone. I picked it up. Yeah, the house is in pre-foreclosure. The bank has already filed a writ of possession. It is not a threat anymore. It is a schedule. I stood there shaking. This wasn't just financial abuse. It was theft. It was fraud. They were drowning. And instead of swimming, they had climbed on my shoulders to keep their heads dry while pushing me under. Draft the letter, I whispered. But don't send it yet. I want to see how this plays out. Because now I knew something they didn't. I knew the clock was ticking, and it was ticking a lot faster than they realized. Any rational person facing foreclosure does 3 things. They panic, they pack, and they beg for mercy. My family did none of those. Instead, they decided to throw a party. Not just a party, a gala. 3 days after I found out about the secret debt, the invite hit Facebook. It wasn't for a Save the House fundraiser. It was for a retirement renovation reveal. I stared at the screen, blinking hard. They were losing the house in a matter of weeks, yet they were inviting half the town over to celebrate a new deck. It felt like watching people rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic, except they were also bragging about how expensive the chairs were. Then came the content storm. Megan posted a reel set to inspirational acoustic music. The camera panned over the brand new mahogany decking, the twinkling string lights, and finally the glistening chrome of the $65,000 RV parked in the driveway. She did a little twirl holding a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Faith is trusting that when one door closes, a garage door opens." So blessed to launch my new mobile journey. God always provides. Van life blessed. Family first. God provides. For a sickening moment, I faltered. This is the moment they call the false victory. I sat in my dim kitchen watching the likes roll in 200, 300, 400 hearts. People commenting, "So proud of you, and you guys deserve this." A cold doubt crept into my chest. Had they done it? Had they found another source? Maybe Dad had a secret pension I didn't know about. Maybe they had scammed someone else. Maybe I was the crazy one obsessing over spreadsheets while they manifested abundance. It looked so real. Their happiness, their success, their complete lack of fear. It made me feel small. It made me feel like I had cut them off for nothing, that my absence hadn't impacted them at all. They were thriving without me. I almost closed the laptop. I almost let them have it. But then I remembered Mr. Henderson's voice. Pre-foreclosure. Writ of possession. I opened a new tab. I didn't go to Instagram. I went to the County Clerk of Court's public records database. I typed in Dennis Robert. The page loaded. I scrolled past the tax liens. I scrolled past the old speeding tickets. And there at the very top, filed 48 hours ago, was a new PDF. Order of eviction, writ of possession. Status active. Scheduled execution July 4th, 1400 hours. I clicked the document. It wasn't a warning. It was a command. The bank had petitioned for an expedited removal because of waste and asset deterioration, likely the unpermitted deck construction. Because of the holiday weekend, the sheriff's department was clearing the docket. They weren't coming next month. They were coming on Independence Day. At 2 in the afternoon. My eyes darted back to the Facebook invite. Party starts at 1 p.m. I looked at the time on the writ. Sheriff arrives at 2 p.m. The math was so brutal, it was almost poetic. They had scheduled their renovation reveal to overlap perfectly with their eviction. They were going to have 100 guests, a caterer, and a DJ standing on that new deck exactly 1 hour before the police arrived to lock them out of it. My thumb hovered over Dad's contact in my phone. The old Lauren, the Lauren who paid the mortgage, the Lauren who fixed the glitches, screamed at me to call them, to warn them. "You cannot let them be humiliated like this," she whispered. "It is cruel. Tell them to cancel the party. Tell them to pack." I actually typed the first 3 letters. Dad the shoe. Then I stopped. I heard his voice in my head. Silent partner, financial abuse, thief. If I warned them, they would blame me. They would say I ruined the party. They would say I called the police. They would spin it. I backspaced. I set the phone down. They wanted me to be a silent partner. Fine. I would be the most silent partner in history. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't warn. I would let the clock run out. I closed the browser. I didn't RSVP. But I knew exactly where I would be on July 4th at 2 p.m. And it wasn't going to be at a barbecue. July 4th was sunny, obnoxiously so, the kind of day designed for barbecues and denial. I didn't go to the house. I parked my car 3 streets over, tucked behind a thick hedge of oleander. Snorts. I didn't need to be there in person. We live in the age of digital surveillance, and my sister Megan was my unwitting cameraman. I sat in the driver's seat, phone propped on the dashboard, watching Megan's Instagram live. The party was in full swing. The video feed was chaotic and loud. She was walking through the backyard showing off the spread. "Look at this charcuterie board, guys." She squealed, panning over imported cheeses that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The new deck was packed. Dad was holding court near the grill, a beer in one hand, gesturing wildly with tongs. He looked triumphant. He looked like a man who had gotten away with it. "To family," he shouted, and the camera swung to capture the toast. "To those who show up, to loyalty," the guests cheered. My stomach turned. The comments on the live stream were a river of praise. "Best dad ever goals. So happy for you guys." I checked the time. 1:58 p.m. And here is the star of the show. Megan announced, walking down the driveway toward the massive RV. It gleamed in the sunlight, a monument to their selfishness. She patted the chrome bumper. "My new office. Can't wait to hit the road." 2 p.m. In the background of the video, a vehicle turned onto the street. It wasn't a guest. It was a white sedan with municipal plates. Behind it, a flatbed tow truck rumbled into view. Megan didn't notice at first. She was too busy reading comments. But then the doorbell rang, a loud, sharp, authoritative ring that cut through the music. "Ooh, surprise guest," Megan chirped. She trotted toward the front door, phone still streaming. My heart hammered against my ribs. I watched through her screen as she opened the door. It wasn't a surprise guest. Standing on the porch were 2 uniformed sheriff's deputies and a man in a polo shirt holding a drill. "The locksmith. Robert Dennis?" the deputy asked. His voice was loud, clear, and picked up perfectly by Megan's microphone. Dad appeared behind Megan, smiling, his face flushed with drink. "Officers, come to join the party. Grab a burger." "Sir, I have a writ of possession for this property," the deputy said, stepping forward. He held up a paper. "This house is now the property of the bank. You have 15 minutes to vacate the premises before we change the locks. Everyone needs to leave now." The silence that fell over the live stream was absolute. The music stopped. The chatter died. "What?" Dad laughed. A nervous, high-pitched sound. "That is a mistake. My daughter handles the bills. There is a glitch." "There is no glitch, sir. The foreclosure was finalized 30 days ago. You were served notice. You need to step aside." Megan's camera shook. She spun around, capturing the scene in the driveway. The tow truck was backing up to the RV. "Hey," Dad screamed, pushing past the deputy. "That is my vehicle. You cannot touch that." "We have a repossession order for the recreational vehicle as well, sir. Co-signed by the default mortgage holder. It is collateral." The chaos erupted. Dad started screaming, pointing at Megan's phone as if I were inside it. "She did this. Lauren did this. She stopped paying. She ruined us." But nobody was looking at me. They were looking at him. The neighbors were peering over fences. The guests were hurriedly grabbing their purses and casseroles, scrambling to their cars to escape the embarrassment. I watched as the deputies physically blocked Dad from the tow truck. I watched as the locksmith started drilling into the front door of the house I had paid for. I watched Megan start to cry, not because they were homeless, but because her followers were seeing it. The screen went black as Megan finally realized she was still streaming and cut the feed. I sat in the silence of my car. I waited for the guilt to hit. I waited for the old feeling, the need to fix it, to save them. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt light. The air in the car felt cleaner. I started the engine. I didn't drive toward the house. I drove away. The aftermath was exactly what you would expect. Dad moved into a motel for a week, then Aunt Brenda's basement until she kicked him out for eating all her food. Megan scrubbed her social media, claiming she was taking a digital detox for her mental health. A week later, I got one last voicemail from Dad. He was crying. He sounded old. "Lauren," he sobbed. "Please." Snorts, "I just need a small loan. Just first and last month's rent for an apartment. I am your father. You cannot leave me like this." I didn't block the number. That would have required effort. I just pressed delete. The scene shifted. 30 days later, I sat on the floor of a living room. It was small. The carpet was beige. The walls needed painting. But the deed on the table next to me had one name on it. Lauren Dennis. Caleb walked in with 2 boxes of Thai takeout. He sat down next to me, handing me a fork. "It is quiet," he said, looking around. "Yeah," I said, taking a bite of pad Thai. "It is. Do you miss them?" I thought about it. I thought about the barbecue. I thought about the silent partner text. I thought about the RV. "I miss who I wanted them to be," I said. "But I don't miss who they are." He nodded. "To the silent partner," he said, raising a plastic cup of water. "To the sole owner," I corrected, clicking my cup against his. I finally learned that you cannot buy respect, but you can definitely stop funding your own disrespect. Have you ever had to cut the financial cord with family? Tell me your story in the comments, and don't forget to follow for more stories about reclaiming your